Greetings and welcome to Careful Conversations. My name is Jane Barton and I serve as the Caregiving Ambassador for AARP, the sponsor of this program. Thank you so much for stopping by today to talk about some aspects about the caregiving journey. Caregiving from the inside out. I think you would probably agree with me that one of the greatest challenges we encounter over the course of a lifetime is the diagnosis of a serious illness, whether for ourselves or for a family member. That is a life-changing event. And what we also need to recognize is that disease then becomes a member of our family. Just like any other member, we have to learn how to live with that disease in our home. And the way I imagine this to be, it's like the 800-pound gorilla that walks across the threshold and lands squarely in your living room. Now obviously this is not a family member that you wanted or that you invited, but regardless, it is a family member we have to learn how to deal with. We have to build a relationship with it, and we have to understand that our attitude toward the disease will inform and influence all the decisions we make around medical care. And ultimately we have to determine, does our attitude, does our relationship with disease serve us well? Well, what are our options? How can we relate to this 800-pound gorilla in the room? Well, initially after a diagnosis, oftentimes we try to ignore it. This is denial. Now, denial can serve a purpose for a short period of time, but it is not a long-term solution. So at some point in time, the reality comes home to bear. We have to confront this particular family member. So we move into a different posture, a different relationship, and oftentimes we become combative. We choose to fight the disease. We hope to eliminate it from our family system. So we are seeking a cure. Now when we talk to our medical professionals, we will seek curative measures, aggressive measures in the hope of winning this battle. Now sadly, oftentimes we are not successful. The disease is chronic or perhaps terminal. And that is when we have to realize that it's not about fighting, it's about learning to coexist with the 800-pound gorilla. We have to learn how to live with that disease process. Now this is not giving up, this is merely accepting the reality of our situation. And by so doing, we can take palliative measures to control our pain and symptoms and then elevate our quality of life. And that is a good thing indeed. Now you may be wondering if there is a best way to relate to an 800-pound gorilla. Is there an advisable way? Well, I would say there is no one right way. We will deal with disease at different times in different ways based on our own personality and our own situation. When was it diagnosed? How old are we? What is the situation in our family? Are we working? Do we have young children? So there are a variety of factors that come to bear on that relationship. So ultimately, the way we determine whether it's right or wrong is to determine if our relationship is beneficial. Does it serve us well, ultimately? So today, if you are confronted by a serious diagnosis in your family, I would invite you to consider, how are you dealing with it? And is your approach, is your attitude serving you and yours well? And if not, you have the opportunity to transform that relationship. Now I think one thing to consider in that transformation of understanding the disease process, we need knowledge. We need to understand how to relate to it, which means we need to understand the diagnosis and the prognosis and the likelihood for cure. And once done, then we can chart a course that will be reasonable. We will have reasonable expectations. Now ultimately, we all have to realize there's some things we can't control. Oftentimes we can't control that an 800-pound gorilla wandered into our home. But remember, we always retain the freedom and the ability to choose an attitude in response to that. And that intentional choice oftentimes will determine whether we merely endure life or we can still enjoy life. So I hope that your attitude serves you well. So I want to thank you for stopping by once again for a chat about caregiving. If you have additional questions or need resources, please check out the AARP Caregiving Resource Center or check out my website, Cardinal LLC. Both web addresses will be noted at the end of this video. And until our paths cross again and we continue this conversation, I wish you well, and I want to remind you to enjoy the moment.